morning. I'm over here now. I'm going to start back here with Kyle Williams, our Director of Athletics, Matthew Park, who is Dean of Students, General Counsel, Barry Maka, Lee Kidwell, who's Director of Internal Audits, Chris Stovall, our Controller, Vice President Marilyn Foley, Vice President Tony Vidmar. We're going to go back to the back corner, who's Sarah Hines, who's from News Channel 6, Dr. David Carlson, who is Chair of the Faculty Senate, Newman Wong, who is Chair of the Staff Senate. We have with us Kara McIntyre, who is Editor of the Wichita, Provost James Johnston, Vice President Keith Lamb, Cammie Dean, who is Director of the Pretty Scholars Program, and with her is Justice Carwell. And then over here we have Claire Kulalik, who is reporter for the Times Record News, and Cindy Ashlock, Executive Assistant to the President.
Fantastic, thank you. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for your participation in our meetings yesterday. Mr. Hessing is unavailable to join us today. So we go on. Just a reminder, please silence your devices as this meeting is being streamed live on the internet. It appears that no one has signed up to provide public comment, so we will move on. Item 18-40 is approval of the minutes of the August 3rd and 4th meetings of the board. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, they will stand approved as presented. We now move on to the consent agendas. The executive committee met yesterday, and our report is as follows. Items presented for committee approval only, 18-03 committee minutes. Items presented for information only, 18-04 the campus construction update, 18-05 MSU deferred maintenance reports, campus condition index. Item presented and no action taken pending further review is 18-08 Gun College building project. Now the board, there were several members on the board who wanted to reopen this particular subject for some discussion. And so I'm going to open this back up. I believe Linwood and Jeff, you guys had some questions you wanted to talk about.
You want me to talk?
Go ahead.
Okay. Since technically we didn't take action yesterday, either table or vote, technically I think it's still open. And so the question arose that as much money as we're talking about, I think we need to revisit and make sure we're doing something that is being the best stewards of our money. If the Health and Human Science Center finally got so cost prohibitive that we didn't build it and used the TRB money for other projects down the road, what would the
Can't do that.
we can't do that. That's designated for that project. Okay. So if we don't spend all that money, we just don't get it, basically.
That's my understanding is, we made a proposal to the state. They gave us money for a certain purpose.
Based on that project.
Based on that. That was the biggest part of that project, of the funding.
But we're obviously changing the dollar figure. So my understanding is the TRB is allocated over something like 4 things we put in, I think, right? And we're obviously shifting those dollars around by several $1 million to accommodate 1 or 2 of them we've already done. And shifting around. My concern, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, please.
My concern with Jeff, and when we were talking, was I feel like I heard yesterday we're going to have the same capability we had before. Same number of people, same amount of people in it. Why then are we doing that? I mean, I like the look of it, and I think that we can probably work around that some way. But now I'm back to, why are we doing this?
Well, I actually sent Shelley a note later because it's not the same people, and I'd like James Johnson to comment on that, please, because he's the expert. But it vastly changes our ability to pull that department together. So, James, why don't you say what's new in there?
Sure, thank you. It allows us to bring first the simulation center on campus. There are some logistical issues of presenting when you have downtime and startup time, bringing the simulation center. It does allow us to bring a greater synergy of departments under one roof within one building. So,
would you describe the simulation center location and what's there for people who aren't?
Oh, sure. The simulation center is technically the high fidelity laboratory for the nursing departments. Currently, it's down at the Surgeon Center. It's about 5 minutes from campus. Really not far, but when you talk about dismissing the students, taking a few minutes to get their vehicles, get simulation center, start up, and then stop enough time for them to get back to campus. There are challenges with doing that. It also doesn't allow as great a utilization for respiratory care or radiologic sciences, for example, we do the interdisciplinary. So it being remotely located is significantly challenging for its use in a number of areas. So what we've designed around that is in this building is an interdisciplinary learning environment. It's a truly collaborative building space, and I've mentioned before, it's if it were as simple as roof and walls, we could do this pretty cheap, but the building has to serve as an instrument to deliver the quality of education, the state-of-the-art education that we intend on campus. So the whole vision and design of this building is to achieve that, to use this building as an instrument for the delivery of education the way we want to. We have research that supports the more we teach in an interdisciplinary environment, the more that carries over into practice settings. So in the health sciences, that's extremely important. So we did sacrifice some of the classrooms that we would have loved to have had, some of the extra offices that we would like to have had, down the road. But you have to consider also that we're currently in Bridwell, in the Martin Building, and down at the Surgeon Center. So that college has grown significantly and still remains about 40% of the student population. So we've never addressed that growth over the last 15, 20 years. So this building is addressing the growth we've experienced in the past, getting us caught up a little bit. It doesn't give us as much space. We never have as much space as we would like to grow and predict for the future, but it does catch us up significantly from where we are today, and will certainly position us better for tomorrow. If we start significantly reducing the square footage of that building, then yes, we would be significantly challenged to do what we wanted to do with that money in that building.
Well, I'm still a little bit confused. I mean, you said some things that kind of sounded like technology, but for $40 million, we could put a lot of technology into existing buildings. Are we going to do away with the simulation center when we move to this building?
We can repurpose that building, the Surgeon Center building, but we're bringing simulation laboratory itself to campus and putting it in the college building with the other laboratories.
Now, we toured that, some time ago. We all went and actually did a tour of that. It's a fine facility, but I didn't see anything in there that I thought was 21st century technology that required anything particularly special.
Exactly. Keep in mind, that was a repurposed building. That was designed as a surgery and day surgery space, a clinic space. So education space is designed very differently. So they've expanded and accommodate or grow into the space they have. But when you look at, when we benchmarked and looked at modern simulation centers, they look very, very different from that. And that's what we're trying to create, is a modern simulation center. It doesn't allow us to do some of the recording and the debrief and the simulations that we would be able to do in a state-of-the-art facility.
So Dr. Gibbons, if I could summarize briefly, when we went to the MassCom opening and saw how the space repositions how the discipline can function, what James is trying to do and his faculty is trying to do is an integrated approach to healthcare, which is what healthcare today needs. And so right now, they're isolated in little pods in a very closed-in building that is not designed for today's healthcare. You walk in that building, you can see what the radiologists are doing. You can see what the respiratory therapists are doing. And they're seeing each other and interacting with each other. And it's a goal of ours to deliver holistic health care. And that building can make that happen.
Let me agree with that for a second and then kind of follow that up. So assuming I do, let's say I agree with that. As we begin to grow, and you're looking at 2,000 more students within the next 5 years or so, I think it's unrealistic to think that you're going to house any school or any college in one building. So I'm wondering if we ought not to be looking at a new building with the facilities you want. I'm not arguing that. but put it with the look and the feel we want and sacrifice on size if we need to, and not try to be so focused on getting everybody in one building, because 2 years from now, you'll have more students and it won't be large enough anyhow.
I think that's a valuable issue, particularly with Bridwell right next door. And I think we have the ability to be flexible there if that's one of the directions we want to take.
And what we look to move in is actually building new areas, but it also creates opportunities, moving opportunities. But the social work department that's currently in the Martin building would move under this new roof, and the simulation center would move. But the ones currently that are under the roof in Bridwell would be under that roof.
I'm just suggesting that we go first class. Do everything you want, get the look we want, and not try to push everybody into one building as an option to ask you to look at it.
And I think I know the answer to this, but I'm gonna ask you the question anyway. Is a remodel and add-on to Bridwell a viable option?
We have a budget to remodel Bridwell,
Well,
but not for him.
Right, so that didn't answer my question. Is that a viable option? Is an alternative?
For health sciences and
Yeah.
human services, I would think not the way we position the TRB. We can't go to the state and say we need a new building for health sciences and human services and decide to remodel an old one. I don't think.
I don't know.
I-
It would,
I think very early on we looked at versions of
Could we get an answer to that one?
additions or parts.
I kind of agree with the president, that Debbie, that we went to the state and told them we wanted a new building, and we presented that as such, and we've been talking with them about that at the porting board and different places, that's what we were doing. The other difficulty to renovate Bridwell is, what do you do with health sciences in the meantime? Where do they go? You've got 46,000 square feet. Where does all the offices and the labs and all that go when you're remodeling? So there's kind of a domino problem there.
I think it was very early discussions when we were crafting the documents and proposals of a wing or additional floor and those things, and the new freestanding building was just the most economical version or scenario that we came up with.
And for 2 years, we've been paying for architects to help us do this domino effect, and we love the way it's shaping up, and it makes a lot of sense to have student services in the middle of campus, professional buildings on the one side of campus. We've got a really good concept. We just have a $7 million challenge to address, and I think we can do that.
Well,
But I appreciate your input. It's just I don't really want to revisit future decisions at such a late date when we're stacking it up nicely and we've got one challenge we really need to address.
Well, and you just led me to the next question. I saw Barry when I asked the question a while ago shaking his head no. So let's kind of segue into that. It appears the architects have led us astray on this deal. What thing liability might they have? Will they be willing to redraw this and us not pay them? I mean, I think they owe us something.
The contract states, we did this contract with them, is if it didn't come within budget, they have to redesign at no cost.
Okay.
So I really do think we're pretty close to getting it within the $41 million. And I am very optimistic that the design is going to be lovely. It's not going to be as super dramatic as what you saw, but it's still going to be pretty dramatic. You're still going to have a big 4-story glass front to it. It just has to be squared off. That round that you saw is $1 million. $1 million just for that. And you square it off, you save $1 million. So I think we've got lots of great design options that'll save money. It won't be exactly the same look, but it's still going to be a very nice look.
Yeah.
So give us an opportunity to redesign it. and come back to you. And I
Okay.
think you're gonna be pretty happy with it.
But you
I think
will
it can
keep
be
in
a
mind,
win-win.
this is our big growth area, and it's not gonna be big enough anyhow when you open it, because it's gonna be so great. We're gonna have even more students, so we're going to have some over,
So right now,
It's
it's
gonna have to be
designed at
somewhere else.
86,000 square feet. If we add the third and the fourth floors that we talked about, that four-story atrium space is almost another $1 million. And we can add the third and the fourth floors and eliminate that cost. And then he gets another 5,000
Right.
square feet, so now he's up to 91,000 square feet. So that's a pretty good trade-off in my book.
Yeah.
So,
Those are the kinds of things, to your point, I think, and to Lynwood and Jeff's point, I think the concern that was opened up was it seemed like the way it was presented to the board was, well, we were only gonna kind of build what we already had, and so now we're gonna cut it down, and we're gonna kind of maybe need to cut corners. And we all know that that area is extremely important to the university, and really for the state of Texas and the students that we're producing. And that's why so many students are flocking to that, because that industry is going to need a ton of people. And so we definitely want to capitalize on that for the university and make something that we all want to be proud of. So we're just, I can tell you that it just raised a lot of concerns when we couldn't see what it was going to be. We just want to make sure you guys keep that in mind.
yeah, these options we've just been discussing over the last few weeks. So, yeah, give us a little time, and I think we'll come up with a really nice design that you all will be happy with, and get it within budget. And it'll still be, I think, pretty dramatic. Don't you
Yeah,
think?
I think so, and everyone was at the table, the architects, CMAR, when we've had these early discussions, these VE discussions, and they all understood we need to find some balance with the aesthetics of the building and the functionality, the interior and the square footage. So it wasn't just going to be completely just a box, and that's what I was saying earlier. If it were as simple as a box, we wouldn't have the discussion to begin with. But it really has to serve as an instrument, has to serve as a recruiting tool. But we have to find a balance of those two things. We don't want to have something that is spectacular but so small that we recruit students, we frustrate them. When we bring them to campus, we want to have it as a recruiting tool, but also maintain as an educational instrument that it should be.
Marilyn, are we going to be able to give the board choices? So in this redesign, what he always gave us before is just the design that he wanted. Well, I don't mean it that way, but the one thing. Are there going to be, can we ask for some choices?
So let's think about it. If we can keep the square feet and then have some modified design, if we say, okay, we want to keep the design but cut the square feet, he's still going to have to redesign because you'll be lobbing off 15, 20, 25,000 square feet. So how do you take that out of the current design? You'd have to lop off the top floor or something to make it shrink that way.
Well, it sounds like priority number one yesterday was not cutting back on square footage.
Correct. We'd like to stay with that unless the board is telling us differently. That's what I'm trying to make sure we walk away.
What you all want is design options.
I guess, yeah, I mean, obviously, I think we want to keep the functionality most important, obviously, because it's a learning tool or learning mechanism for us to be able to teach students. But I think in that, the aesthetic part of it is very important because it is a corner piece to the university. It's a huge part of how we're transitioning the university going forward. And, there's a lot of things that are happening subsequent to that I think are going to enhance the just general aesthetics of the campus. And so we just ask that you keep that in mind. And so what we were thinking about as options is like, if you guys look at it and say, here's a couple different ways we could go, we'd like to see those.
For
Okay.
looks.
The look, so the design, keep the square feet, but
But
just,
we need to have your direction clear in our minds. Is there agreement generally that the square footage is important, but you'd like some pop in the design as much as possible, even if we have to reallocate a little here or there? So if we decide to
Yes.
put $1 million back into the outside, that's up to us to figure out where we get it and come back and tell you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, that'll make the architect happy too. Good.
We just felt like after mulling it over, we need to kind of close the loop on
Thank you.
yesterday's discussion. So thank y'all for that.
thank you for listening to that.
Thank you. Okay, well, again, there was no votes, no action taken, pending further review, and we'll set that up in the near future once we have more information. Items approved by committee and placed on consent agenda, 18-06, the Moffett Library renovation project, architect contract approval, and CMAR recommendation. Authorize the administration to contract with HMB for design services and approve M&F, Litigant, and CMAR as presented. 18-07, Information Technologies Relocation Project Authorization. Approve the project at a cost of $1,577,257 and authorize the president to increase the budgeted and contracted amounts by 5% as presented. 18-09, Gunn College of Health Sciences Human Services Landscaping and Parking Project Authorization. Authorize the expansion of the project as presented. Approve the project total cost not to exceed $2,370,250 and authorize the president to increase the budgeted and contracted amount by 5%. 18-10, MSU Policies and Procedures Manual Change, Policy 4.146, approved and modified the Policy 4.146, honorific and gift-related namings as presented. 18-11, Wichita Falls Museum ratification of Ascension artwork, that's $1 fine. Ratify the Ascension items as presented. I recommend approval of these consent agenda items as presented. Would anyone like to remove items from the consent agenda for further discussion? If not, do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Dr. Givens, please present the Academic and Student Affairs Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Academic and Student Affairs Committee met yesterday, and our report is as follows. Item 18-12, the committee minutes was presented for committee approval only. The following items were presented for information only. 18-13, the faculty report. 18-14, the staff report. 18-15, the student government report. 18-16, the athletics report. 18-17, fall 2017 enrollment report and upper class student retention discussion. 18-18, the DFW expansion update, and 18-20, the first year experience report. Mr. Chairman, the following items are approved by the committee or were approved by the committee and placed on the consent agenda. 18-19, the December 2017 graduating class. Approve the list of candidates for graduation as presented. 18-21, Financial Aid and Admissions Task Force Report and Admissions Criteria Recommendation. The committee approved the following change in MSU admissions policies. Students will be admitted if they graduate in the top 25% of their class from an accredited high school if they meet the following conditions. 1, graduated from high school within the 2 years prior to the academic year for which admission is sought, and 2, submitted a complete application before the deadline. 18-22, the low producing degree program, approved the following. A, consolidate the Master of Education in School Counseling with the Master of Education in Clinical Mental Health. B, consolidate the Master of Arts in Training and Development under the current Master of Arts in Human Resources as a certificate option in Training and Development. C, consolidate the Master of Education in Reading Education under the current Master of Education in Curriculum and Instruction as an 18-hour minor. Chairman Sanchez, I recommend approval of these consent agenda items as presented.
Would anyone like to remove items from the consent agenda for further discussion? If not, the committee chair is recommending approval. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Gregg, please present the Finance Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Finance Committee met yesterday. Our report is as follows. I'm presenting for committee approval only, 18-23 committee minutes. I'm presenting for information only, 18-24 summaries of financial support and comprehensive campaign update, 18-25 quasi-endowment funds reports for fiscal year 17. Items approved by committee and placed on the consent agenda, 18-26, approved the monthly financial report for July 17. 18-27, accepted the fourth quarter 17 investment report. 18-28, investment policy changes were approved. Operating funds 4.182 is presented. 18-29, ratified changes in personnel reports in fiscal year 17 budget. And 18-30, ratified changes presented in personnel reports and changes in fiscal year 18 budget. 18-31, approval of new positions. Enrollment management, authorized administration to add 2 full-time equivalent positions in enrollment management as presented, and authorize the budget increase not to exceed $125,000 for search expenses and to fund the positions and office expenses during fiscal year 18 as presented. 18-32, budget adjustment for international recruitment fee, authorize an increase in the fiscal year 18 revenue and expense budgets of $400,000 to reflect this new fee and offsetting related expenditures. 18-33, corporate contracts for academic degree programs, authorize administration to negotiate corporate contracts for certain academic degree programs as presented. Mr. Chairman, I recommend approval of these consent agenda items as presented.
Would anyone like to move items from the consent agenda for further discussion? If not, committee chair has recommended approval. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Burks, please run the Audit, Compliance, and Management Review Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Audit, Compliance, and Management Review Committee met yesterday, and our report is as follows. Items presented for committee approval only, 18-34, committee minutes. Items presented for information only, 18-34, HUB report, fiscal year 17. 18-36, compliance activities update. Items approved by committee and placed on consent agenda, 18-37, fiscal year 17 internal audit annual report and audit update, approved report as presented. 18-38, internal audit quality assurance review self-assessment report, accepted the self-assessment as presented. Item 18-39, MSU policies and procedures changes, approved changes to the following policies as presented. Policy 2.31, Administration Selection Process, University President Performance Evaluation, and Policy 3.314, Ethics Policy for Employees of Midwestern State University. Chairman Sanchez, I recommend approval of these consent agenda items as presented.
Would anyone like to move items from the consent agenda for further discussion? If not, the committee chair has recommended approval. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 18-41, the University Leadership Report includes presentations on a number of topics. Dr. Shipley, please introduce this item.
All right, today I'm pleased to have a number of reports for you, and the first report will begin with a presentation by Dr. Johnston. When James was appointed provost, the faculty wanted to hear his vision for academics at Midwestern, and he presented this information earlier in the fall, and I asked him to give you an executive summary of that presentation.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to present the version of these initiatives for you. Calling this program Creating Our Signature, and there we go. First, just very briefly, why a signature? I think a signature in general reflects an identity, a personality, and it's something that is distinctive. And I think as a university, that's what we're lacking at this point, or what we need to further develop. We can compete on a number of things, our price, our location, and after a point, we have to present something that is distinctive, something that's uniquely us. The need for a signature, if you look at our history, and this is my opinion of where we are, we began as a junior college, and a junior college has a very distinctive culture and mission. We then transitioned to a university, and that also has its own culture and mission. But we began as primarily commuter-based, and I think we have transitioned more and more to a residential campus. When you transition to a residential campus, your culture and your identity has to evolve with that. And I think that's where an area that we need to work specifically on, and that will help us with this identity. I think right now, if you ask who or what Midwestern State University is, you'll get a number of answers, and it usually is centered around specific program or department or maybe a college. What I would like to see us achieve is a collective answer, an umbrella answer of what is Midwestern State University, and then underline that with some of the great things that we're doing in this campus. Working on this signature certainly allows us to focus on and embrace what we do best. There are 3 areas that we'll be working in with a curriculum, with student support, and traditions, identity, and I'm sure you would love for me to spend the next couple hours talking about how each of these tie into the strategic plan, but actually what I want to show you this slide is our new strategic plan. This is a cross-reference and where each of these initiatives or these areas is touching the new strategic plan. So it makes considerable progress in achieving those goals. So within the curriculum, these are the areas to be working on. The first is a series of minors, and we have about 30 minors on the books right now, but they're very specifically focused on, specifically focused on a degree or a program. I intend for these to be very broad, touch a number of majors across campus. And we're starting with 5, and the ideas for those are filtering up now through the departments and will be brought to Dean's Council, and we'll talk about those and select those. But as an example, if you think of entrepreneurship, that if you was a business view of creativity, what about an artist view or a scientist view of creativity? And what if a minor in creativity and innovation or entrepreneurship and innovation, and what that might mean to a number of students across campus? As we work more with our advising and counseling, what we're looking to do is find from each student what exactly they want to do with that degree. And that might be a little different than you would expect, even with the common ones that are very overt in their skill set. But once we have that answer, we can guide them through one of these minors that will enhance their experience and their marketability and happiness throughout their career. The Signature Experiences program are the series of high-impact practices, the undergraduate research. You heard about the learning communities yesterday, study abroad. We know those things are life-changing experiences for our students. So what I have a task force looking at now is our current capacity for those and what it would take to make that a requirement of graduation. So we value those, we understand the importance of those, so hope to be bringing that to you in the near future of approving this to be part of the signature of Midwestern State University. The other thing we've talked about is growth in our graduate programs and move to offer terminal degrees. I've worked with Keith and Captain Zuckweiler, our graduate dean, and the deans on where we might have capacity within our graduate programs and do some very targeted and specific recruiting efforts. The move to terminal degrees, we would begin with the 3 or fewer category or option. These would be very unique doctoral degrees that are ideally suited to our mission and what we do as a university. Within student support, you heard a little bit about the Bridge program yesterday in my comments. Bridge program is just that, to bridge a high school student to the rigors of college life. Our first Bridge program will be a pilot. We're looking to address those that are required to take developmental courses or admitted by review. That's a very large segment of our student population. We want to address that, and this will be delivered in a 5-week summer session type format. They would take that. We're working with Keith's area. Dr. Kristen Garrison, Dr. Christy Schulte are co-chairing this initiative. We'll have the pilot ready to go for summer of 18. Those students would enroll, they take the developmental courses, and when the fall semester begins, they are college ready and on level to move through. Future Bridge programs, we might look at international students, for example, and acclimating them to the American education system. More for first-generation students, helping them adjust to college life and providing that guidance and role model for them. So a number of those to come. Reorganization of the Academic Success Center to TASK, you've heard about that yesterday, and that is in place and moving forward. I think early use of that are very good. Strengthening our first-year experience, Kristen presented on that yesterday as well. We're moving forward with that. We'll continue to gather and analyze data on the academic seminar courses, for example, and the learning communities. As she said yesterday, we have a number of students that come in that have a considerable amount of college credit. So the initial tying freshman English to political science, if they've already had one or both, then the pairing is difficult. So we may look at reaching to sophomore year and finding more pairings that make sense for the students that we're bringing in. And then the targeted recruitment enrollment might seem funny under student support, but Keith and I have had a lot of conversations about looking around the college, the departments where we have capacity. Recruiting the masses is an important process, and we'll continue to do that. But as Dr. Camacho has said in the past, it's hard to recruit a music major or a theater major at a college, not at a public high school. There are specific areas where you might go and have better luck recruiting those students. Under the area of support, when you find that student and you bring them to a place where we have a space for them and a faculty that is very eager to engage them, that moves them through in a timely manner and graduates them on time. So certainly think that's a student support initiative. The traditions and identity, this is a part where I have a lot of ideas and trying to keep those focused. But one of the things we'll begin, I'll begin by saying this. As a campus, again, that creating that culture of a residential campus, we need to do more to connect our students to this university, the community to this university, and our alum coming back to this university. Part of that is our traditions. It's the identity. It's what we remember and tie back to. So beginning with a May commencement, we'll do a senior campus walk, and the intent of that is to have the graduating seniors gather by Hardin. We'll ceremoniously lead them through each of the academic buildings, and the faculty and staff in those buildings will be there to congratulate them as they move through. We'd like to continue seniors off and then hold a reception for the faculty and staff, and as a thank you for an academic year. The other is campus commencement, and if you think about it, that's one of the last memories, one of the last impressions they have of the university, and think about the impression that we leave currently and where that might go. I have a task force working on what it would take to move the logistics of bringing commencement back to campus and maybe making this an entire event. So what if we held that campus walk on a Thursday evening, and then Friday late morning we had the graduates and their families come. We have an event around the bowling fountain. We have tents set up by college and the Alumni Association, and community-sponsored lunch, and we feed them and celebrate their achievement. We have the specialty graduations on a Friday afternoon. Then we graduate half the colleges with their respective faculty on Friday evening and the other half on Saturday morning, and really make this a true weekend event. If or when we get our football stadium, that could be a venue to hold one campus graduation. But it's important to make that last memory of the university an important and a memorable one. The Outstanding Alumni Lunch, I asked the Celebration of Scholarship Committee to work with Tony's office to get a list of local alum and host a lunch, and we bring the best of our alum together with the best of our students that are presenting at that celebration of scholarship. Again, I think that's an opportunity to create internship opportunities if we want our students to connect with this community, this region, and stay here and work here and raise their families here. We have to do more to connect them with the community. So there's a whole list of those, and I've talked about those, I think, ad nauseum to anybody that would listen. If you're interested in more, I'd be happy to tell you more. But that's an overview of what we'll be working on over the next 5 years in Academic Affairs Part 2 to achieve our new strategic plan. I'll be happy to answer questions.
What about the bridge program? So the way I understand that is that we're kind of connecting with high schools, different places where you're helping transition students and getting them ready. Is that kind of how that?
No, actually, these are admitted students, so we accept these students. We talked about that group of admit by review, or the ones that are accepted but are also required by TSI scores to take a developmental course. There's a number of state initiatives. One is that we have to concurrently enroll them in a developmental and the on-level course, and this helps us to address some of those. But basically, when you bring a freshman student in and they're thinking they're just launch into their career and their degree, and then they have to take the developmental courses, and then because of that, they can't take this course and so on. It's really disheartening to the student, and we have a large first-gen population, so the parents don't understand why we're doing this. And this bridge is an important educational piece, certainly for the parents to help them, but it also gives that student the opportunity to take the developmental courses they need, the life skills and the college readiness skills, and when August comes, that fall semester starts, they're in the same classes with all their friends, and they truly do launch into that major and that career. Thank you again very much for the opportunity to present this.
Thank you, James.
Mr. Chairman, in light of the vision, it wasn't really a question. I was wondering if next time, if the administration would address two things that I haven't heard about the vision. And one is I've heard that we don't do dual credit. I'd like to see a presentation of why we don't do that as a growth area. Would be a huge way of getting us into our high schools. I think it might be a big way of upping the students who come in and their scores. So I'd like to see why we don't do that and if it's part of our vision. And the other one is the online competitiveness as part of the vision. Maybe this is the appropriate time to bring it up as part of your strategy. We have a number that are online, but I'd like to get a feel for how broad we are with that, what our programs are for advancing it, and what our vision is there, because I think that might be a big growth area.
Okay.
Is that acceptable time to bring it in? Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm back. Sorry. Now we're going to get to hear from our Pretty Scholars program. Cammie Dean has been working to coalesce a group, get them together. They've met with members of the Pretty Foundation Board, and Dr. Lamb will introduce progress on the program and introduce Cammie Dean, and she'll share some student perspectives with us. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm sorry, I just sat down and saw this right in front of me.
Good looking guy.
Thank you for the picture, Karen.
She wanted you to autograph it.
I cannot tell you how many texts I've received over the last day of people doing this. But at any rate, and that's true. I'm very thrilled to be able to visit with you all just for a few minutes about the Pretty Scholars program, and we are incredibly happy and excited about this program. And let me preface my remarks by just thanking the Pretty Foundation for sharing in this journey and for believing in this vision that Dr. Shipley had when we began discussing a program that would impact first-generation students and middle-income students. And let me tell you real quickly why we believe that is an important population to impact. We know income-wise that middle-income students, generally those students whose families earn $50,000 to $125,000, are the ones struggling most to pay for college. They generally do not receive grants or free type of money to attend school, and they do not have the means to pay for college without taking out significant loans, especially if they have multiple children in college. So that population was important to us to look at. First generation, you've heard quite a bit over the last couple of days about first generation students. Midwestern states, about half first generation college students. The state of Texas is increasingly first generation college students, so much so that the state, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, in their last two strategic plans have very explicitly focused on at-risk or underrepresented and first generation college students. The last strategic plan was the Closing the Gaps by 2015, aimed at access for underrepresented and first generation students. The current strategic plan of the state is 60 by 30 TX, which is focused on completion of post-secondary education for this same group. So the state, and we recognize the importance to the state's future of this population. We recognize that we will increasingly see this population access college, and we also know that this population, first-generation students, have more hurdles and more difficulty accessing college and completing college. And there are a lot of reasons for that, but one of the reasons is not their abilities. We know very clearly that these students from all backgrounds have the same native cognitive abilities. What they have lacked is opportunity. And that is what this program essentially is. It's manifest opportunity for these students. This program covers all tuition, fees, room, board, books, study abroad for these students for up to 4 years. And I think back on my own life and how something like this could have impacted it. My father, for example, was a first-generation college student, and my life was therefore changed by his ability to go to college. And that's also changed my children's lives, right, and their children's lives. And so this program, to me, the beautiful thing about this type of a program in allowing this opportunity to first-generation college students is not only the impact it has on them, it's the intergenerational effect and what it will do for their descendants generations to come. So with that, as a preface, I would like to introduce Cammie Dean, who's director of our program, and Justice Carwile, who is a student in the program. Cammie is a great choice for this, to lead this program. She's done an outstanding job with it. Cammie was a first-generation college student who was afforded the opportunity at the University of Iowa through TRIO programs. A little different than this. This is more intentional and more direct, but I think Cammie certainly has a very good understanding of what it takes to realize this opportunity. So, Cammie, Justice.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I will not talk too long. Justice actually has class at 10, so we want to make sure that you get her there on time because academic performance, of course, is critical to success for students. But I am really excited to be here and talk to you about the Pretty Scholars Program. Again, I'll add my thanks to Dr. Lambs and saying thank you to the Pretty Foundation. This has meant so much to students, and I have heard so much from the students themselves and their parents. The relief financially, initially, but then the excitement and pride that they have in participating in the program and activities. So you received in your board package the overview for September. Given the timing for the board package being put together, this was the last report that I did to make your timeline. But you'll see September activities and October activities. I've put there our statement of purpose, which is really all about our students being full participants and fully informed in their educational process. And that's the most exciting piece for me in working with the students. And so each of the activities that we've planned have really been centered on sort of a hope theory foundation, and it's not the touchy-feely, I hope I'm going to make it. But we talk about 3 ways of thinking that students need to learn and use throughout their career as a student. First of all is having a strong sense of goals and goals thinking. And not so much, I want a 4-year degree, that's a great start, but what are my goals this week and next month? So that I can take care of the things that I need to take care of to reach that ultimate goal of my 4-year degree. Pathways thinking has to do with knowing the steps required to accomplish those goals that they've set in place for themselves. And finally, agency thinking, which is really about, in the K-12 world, they talk a lot about grit. This is the ability to have a sustained and continuous effort of action and intentionality in the things that they do throughout their educational process so that they can actually maintain that, that goal and reach the goal that they're intending to by performing the actions and behaviors required. So you'll see a number of the activities that have been taking place. Our conversations this week as they're prepping to participate in early advising and registration have centered a lot on the exams that are coming up. We talked a good deal with our first-year students in October about their learning styles. And they're telling me, well, because of my learning style, I've really changed the way I'm studying for this class. And here's how I'm being successful in a subject that I didn't think I'd ever be great at. My sophomore students are really engaged in service and leadership opportunities. They participated in a tour with a third grade class with 60 third graders on campus, and they showed them around campus, talked about their experiences as a college student, and really helped to inspire some young students from Booker T. Washington, who also will largely be first-generation students in about 10 years. And my junior students have been working with Rising Mustangs, which is a leadership development program, and they're very excited about that right now. But what I'll do at this stage is turn it over and introduce Justice. Justice, tell us about yourself.
Hello, my name is Justice. I'm a freshman and I'll be majoring in psychology. I was actually born here in Wichita, and I was originally going to go to Vernon because my oldest brother, he first went to St. John's in Minnesota and then he transferred to UNT. And so that was a lot of money going into that for my parents and everything. And I also have a second oldest brother that's going into college. So I was just going to go to Vernon to keep it easy on them and everything. And I just think that this scholarship has been amazing. I'm so fortunate in the opportunities that I've gotten, first to meet all of y'all and to be in some of the organizations I am on campus.
Questions for Justice?
Justice, where'd you go to high school and how did you hear about this program?
I went to high school at City View,
Okay.
and my mom works for Dr. Purcell. He's an internal medicine doctor, and he is really big on reading the newspaper and found it. He found it for me in the Archer County newspaper, and was just really excited to have me do this.
Great.
So a component of this is study abroad.
Mm-hmm.
Have you decided where you want to go?
I haven't decided where I want to go yet, but I am really, really excited to do it. I never thought that I would have the opportunity to do so.
So Justice will probably do study abroad 2019 or 2020. We actually had our meeting, our junior students met with Dr. Mills from the study abroad program in early October to begin their plans because they'll be the first group to go in 2018. And next week, our sophomores will be meeting with Dr. Mills, who are more likely to go in 2019. So sort of phasing in their exposure to the program. And it's one of the things that they're most excited about. And I am just excited for them because it's one of the opportunities I didn't get to take advantage of while I was a student.
Not a shameless plug. I went to London, so
I have a question I'm interested in, Justice. One of our goals was that you develop a closeness with the other scholars and that bolster you and give you a family here on campus. Can you talk a little bit about how that's happened or whether that's happened and what it's meant for your academic success or your personal happiness?
Okay. My roommate, Kaylee, she's a scholar too. They have all of us all on the same floor, which I think is actually really awesome. She went to Holiday, which is City View's rival school. I think Holiday is everybody's rival school. But I honestly never thought that I would be friends with her, and I didn't think that I would have the wide group of friends that I have now through this scholarship. And my mom's friend, her son, Clark, he's actually one of the scholars, and I had never met him until now, which the big group of friends I have now is really amazing as compared to what I would have had at Vernon, which probably would have been none. But
You can talk about homecoming. The activities you all did.
oh yes, homecoming. We participated in the cardboard boat race.
Oh, no.
We combined with the pre-professional society just to make a bigger group of us because most of us were really busy and everything, and it was a fun experience. I don't know, I just had a really great time participating in it with my friends.
They surprised me with that. It was the students' idea. They came and they said, "Do you think that we could do some of the homecoming activities?" And I have no idea why not. They did the tailgate as well and the cardboard boat race, and it was really great to see them really come together on something that they initiated themselves.
We were going to do the lip sync, but it was really, really last minute. We had our first practice the day before, so
we decided to wait till next year. That would have been embarrassing.
Can you tell us how the mentoring program has worked for you? Has it been beneficial and how it's been going on?
Yes, where do I want to start? I think Cammie herself has been amazing with mentoring us and everything. It's just, I don't know, I feel like I have a lot more responsibility because of the scholarship as opposed to what I would have had originally at Vernon, and just, I don't know, it's, like I said, it's amazing.
So for this semester, because it's a new program, a lot of the student leaders that we're bringing in and exposing the Pretty Scholars to, in working with our current students or returning students, peer counselors, orientation leaders, that I knew would be great for the students to meet and get to know. In the future, it will become more of a cyclical system where the Pretty Scholars themselves will mentor the class behind them, which I'm looking forward to. But in the upstart, we, as an example, had a set of student leaders that just talked initially with them about what leadership looks like on campus and the different types of involvement with student organizations. We asked them to do about 8 to 10 hours a week in student engagement, so they were really giving them a picture of what those opportunities are. And then as we move forward, we continue to bring those folks in at different times to talk about kind of where we're at in the season. So Rising Mustangs as an example. This is the time for junior students to really be thinking about stepping into a leadership position to help with resume building. And so the Rising Mustangs program has helped to expose them at a deeper level with some of our strong student leaders on campus, learn more about student government association, peer mentoring activities on campus with the learning communities, and things along those lines.
Just as I'm curious, what impact has living in the dorm made for you?
It's actually a really huge impact. I don't know, like, I don't know where I want to start. Well, City View, first of all, is 10, 15 minutes away. It depends which way you take. I like to take the long way just because I like driving. But I believe it's just made me really close to the campus itself, and it's helped me discover new aspects of it, you know, as opposed to had I been living at home, I would have, because my friend, she lives in Owl Park, and she doesn't stay on campus, and she told me she just goes to class and goes home, and I'm like, oh. And it just, I feel like I have a lot more opportunity to explore the campus, you know, living on it than I would have.
I think about half of our first year students actually planned to commute and had not applied for housing until they got the news that they were in the program. And so then I held their hand and walked them through that process. Well, I wasn't planning on living on campus. But for the most part, it's one of the questions that I do ask in our one-on-ones, how's life and housing? And they enjoy having the roommate, having the access to campus activities. It's about that time of year where the food all starts to seem the same in the dining hall, but that's normal. And I think that engagement level is much higher, and the students will talk about that. Julie actually wrote an excellent article for the upcoming Sun Watcher where one of the students talked pretty passionately about living on campus and having that access to the engagement opportunities and the community opportunities that they would never have had. I did also have some sophomores and juniors who already had a lease for an apartment because they were not living on campus and are now on campus and glad that they are.
Good, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Well, I want to give Dr. Sweat a pat on the back. Her and her board are awesome. And
Ms. Marks.
And Nancy as well. Very, very generous, and you're terrific. Thanks for everything you do.
Absolutely. I think the entire board would echo that.
It's one of those gifts that keeps on giving every single day, and it's so wonderful to see the students and see how much this means to them, and to meet the parents and hear from them. So this meeting, I'm going to complete the meeting with just a few words about a book we read together. And I think this meeting, I hope, shows you it was the luxury of focusing on student learning. This meeting was really about student learning. You know, we often have to do policies and compliance and finance, and we get lost in the numbers. And this meeting brought us back to the heart of what we do. And I think you may also see from this meeting why we love what we do. We love what we do because it is about the students, and we do have a focus on student learning. So I went with Nancy and Shelley to a conference on put on by the AGB, and we heard a presentation on this book, which all of you have, The Undergraduate Experience, Focusing Institutions on What Matters Most. And we decided to read this as a cabinet, and we've worked our way through it over the past 4 months, I guess. Each week we take a chapter. And the takeaway from the book is that we're doing probably 2/3 of what matters most, that we really are a campus that focuses on undergraduate learning and knows that's the heart of what we do. And that means that we believe that our planning is consolidating now, where you have our strategic plan, you have our campaign, you have the sorts of things Dr. Johnson spoke about, where we really know our direction, we know where we want to go, we have goals, we communicate those well, we have a sense of leadership at each of our levels, we have a culture that is a unified culture. The places that we saw a gap that the book talked about was setting expectations and creating regular opportunities for improvement. This book was about recognizing what works, but in recognizing what works, those institutions are always moving toward improvement. They're always urging their community to get better. And that was sort of when the dots began to connect about the enrollment vice president, that we needed to have the courage to step out and make an investment on the one thing we really hadn't gotten right yet, which was growth. And so this book helped us focus, with Tony's help, on alignment. And as usual, Tony's chapter took longer than anybody else's because he had a lot of personal stories. And I listened to him talk about aligning cars for about 15 minutes, and I wondered, well, when's he going to get to the point? And later I thought, oh my gosh, Tony was right. Alignment is important, and we just are not yet aligned. What we had as an institution when I came, it seemed, were a lot of silos because we had isolated strength, and we had loyalty within our colleges or loyalty within our departments, but it's part of what James is saying about a universal identity, an identity we share that motivates us. And so alignment will mean that we take the strengths that are currently isolated and we will bring them together to be a well-aligned institution, and we want to align under learning, student learning. So I hope that we'll have more meetings like this where you hear about the wonderful things we're doing with student learning, but I also hope that you'll help us get our systems in place and our processes in place so that also results in growth, because as revenue comes in, we're better able to reward the people who have made this happen, and that's my desire, that we continue to outshine the other Texas institutions, as good as they may be, because we're just as good. That's it. Thank you. And please read your book.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you guys for all the hard work. Thank you, Dr. Johnson, Dr. Lamb, Ms. Dean, Dr. Shipley, for all that information. Is there anything else that anybody has to come before the board? If not, this concludes our business today. You will soon hear from Ms. Barrow to schedule our special board meeting, and also to invite you to participate in the December graduation ceremony. If you haven't had a chance, please do so. It's fantastic. And with that, we are adjourned.